Just for a moment this evening, please be seated. We're going to transition for a few minutes. Rob, I'm going to ask you, please, and Neil, would you bring just 4 of those chairs? We're going to move this pulpit, and we're going to give an opportunity for a few questions. I really believe that what has been shared tonight is so powerful. And it's very possible that a number of you may want some clarification or may have a specific question that you would like to address to any one of the speakers. Just put them up here, just facing. Now, as far as the time is concerned, how many of you are tired? Look, what we're going to do tonight is, this is very, very significant and very historic. Thank you, Brother Neil. If you could just pick those up. Yeah. And we're going to invite the 4 speakers that come, the Honorable Stockwell Day, Dr. James Lunny, Rabbi Bregman, and Yoel Levin. Would you please come and please find a seat? Now, we're not going to play musical chairs, so you can sit anywhere you like, please. Now, we have a microphone that is set up here on the side, and we're going to entertain just a few questions. What I would like to do is, if you have a question right now, I'm going to ask you to come and actually stand just in the line right on the side so that we know how many questions are going to be asked. So how many of you have a question tonight for the panel? Okay, 1, Brother Meyer, come on up, please. 2, 3, 4, 5. Please come and stand right next to the microphone. Would you please do that? Come, Brother Meyer Mency. All right. Hold on a second. Let's just make sure that microphone is on, Jason. Okay.
This is a question to all the panelists. My name is Meyer, and I'm a child survivor of the Shoah, or the Holocaust. Yeah. And Rabbi Bregman, what you said really touched me. And so I ask, what can we, as Canadians, do in order to change the policy of UBC? In this wonderful country, which I love, Canada, I cannot see that in 2015 we can have this happening. So what can we, as proud Canadians who know the dangers of hate and bigotry, do to change the attitude of UBC administration?
Okay.
I should tell you that UBC is not alone in this. A resolution similar was at McGill, was at Ryerson, was at Concordia, was at Trent. I mean, it's not a question of isolating one university. It's a question in Canada that there has to now be a discussion about what are the boundaries of free speech. We went and got a legal opinion because we were asked to get a legal opinion, one of the students, and our legal opinion came back and said that the referendum's wording was against the bylaws of the AMS itself because it reflected a bigotry. It reflected a isolation. Unfortunately, there was another lawyer for the AMS that said no, 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 and so on. Now, the question is whether or not we ultimately take this situation to court, okay? What are the boundaries? And by the way, no one is, as Stock said, I'm not here defending Bibi. I'm not here, in Israel, we don't refer to them as Prime Minister or Mr. Netanyahu. When somebody does that, we know they're not Jewish. I'm not here defending the government of the State of Israel. You want criticism? The criticism is rampant in Israel, probably more than anywhere else in the world than in terms of a free press. I'm talking about what Omar Barghouti talks about, which is the elimination of the State of Israel. That's behind the BDS movement. And you can read his statements, and he makes it very, very clear. By the way, one final question, one thing that I did ask the Palestinian group when I was going through the companies, and they were really thrilled when I said, I have one more question. They said, oh, God. I said, you have a map there. And I assumed that map, and it had no demarcation of the West Bank or Gaza or the Golan Heights. It was just a map of Israel. And I said, am I correct in assuming that that's what you hope and pray will be the next Palestine? Yes. So first of all, you have to understand, their chant is, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. We're not talking about the West Bank. We're not talking about Gaza. They're talking about the whole enchilada. And I said, is there any room in that map for any Jews? And her answer was, perhaps. So you understand that the movement is about the elimination of the state of Israel. What can be done? Our governments have to get involved in this. On the high level of cabinet to provinces, to have the question, what is permitted in terms of discourse? When we know that there is anti-Semitism, why is this being permitted? So write your member of parliament, write your MLA, write the premier, and by the way, write Arvind Gupta, who is the new president, as many members of the Jewish community have. He has received a ton of mail. I'm sure he would love more.
Okay, I know there's more questions coming. Just briefly, one of the problems we have on campus is students are young. So they don't have a little bit of history. We all think we're young at the front here, by the way. I know Stock is. But, you know, if they shout down and prevent a discourse on campus, that's not what our institutions are about. So you can write, we can all write, to the president of UBC and say this isn't right. And we need to make sure that we keep a forum where you can have dialogue. I think it's outrageous that they would shut down Israeli the prime minister, and also professors from Israel and others trying to speak on campus like they did at Concordia University. They had to cancel the event because of student protests. That's not either freedom of speech or democracy at work. That is bullying at a level that no democracy should ever allow. So we have to have a forum for a respectful dialogue on these issues, and we all have a role to play in that.
It's good to be, I appreciate it. All this is great advice here. Writing is good. How many of you have a Twitter account? Okay, I don't want, I'm not one to encourage even more time on devices. I'm very thankful for all these modern devices. It's fantastic, and I'm not one of these people who say it's all bad. And so you could spend your life away on a Twitter account or on your Facebook account. But the other side on any issue uses those means extensively. And you need to do that also if you feel strongly about this. So whether it's your Facebook account or your Twitter account, and in a respectful and kind way, ask the key questions. One question that should go to the university for sure, based on what Rabbi says, is even to be doing this now, to preempt it, to be saying to the president, if this comes back, because I think, Rabbi, we're going to see it again, it'll come back, an attempt for that referendum, will the university make sure a free and balanced debate is permitted with equal speakers on all sides? So ask that in a preemptive way. Just kind of toss the idea. The reason I hesitate to put out an actual verbatim, as politicians know, if you get something that's actually verbatim, you sort of discount it a bit. You get 1,000 things, but it's all identical. You go, okay, it's important, it's an issue, but it's kind of an organized thing. I will say, so be very, say and ask very specific questions related to that. Just one word on the president. I contacted him, I'm just going to say some of this is confidential for security reasons, but I was asked by, let's just say, some friends of the government of Israel. A very high-ranking official was having their spouse visit UBC, or want to visit UBC because maybe their son was going to attend there. And would he arrange a visit? And the only reason they wanted to be somewhat quiet was because it was at a very sensitive time. But it was clearly, people at the university would know about it. And I will say the president was very good about immediately called, appointed people. When I contacted him, he was actually overseas. He called me back right away, and an entire tour was set up at the request of very high-ranking people in Israel. So realize that keep it respectful, but don't back away from the truth of what we've heard here, what the rabbi said, but ask those very specific questions when you're on an issue like this.
Yeah. Yoel, did you want to comment? Okay. The next question, introduce your name and what you do.
Hi, my name is Mark Jaskella, and I write for the Current Affairs Ministry at this church. I think my question was in part already anticipated by Myers and the answers we've heard from our esteemed visitors. But I do have a three-point preface to this question. First of all, as I understand it, several months ago, the European Union announced that they do not regard Hamas as a terrorist organization. The second point is that adherence to replacement theology, the anti-biblical deception that somehow the church has taken the place of Israel, which was one of the reasons I left my former church when I learned that an associate pastor there was rabidly endorsing it privately, and not yet from the pulpit, is a doctrine that is threatening to turn some churches into breeding grounds for enemies to Israel. And third, a longtime Jewish professor friend of mine, despite being a very learned man, is very embittered and skeptical about the legitimacy of the state of Israel. And he cites various accomplished Jewish intellectuals as being supportive of his position. My question is that in addition to getting better armed with the truth, as we are doing here tonight, how do we as individuals and collectively challenge, counteract, and defeat these deceptions?
Yes, very good question. Very good. Who would like to respond to that first?
I'll just go really quickly because my wife's going. First part, the EU. I don't know if they've changed that. I believe that's correct. So again, you've got to ask very specific questions, and when you have the opportunity to push back, let's say that this is true, that they've declassified Hamas as a terrorist organization. So you can say you lament that, but say, do you realize that it is in the Hamas charter that Israel needs to be exterminated? So just get always press for very clear answers on that. On the other issue of, what was the second one? Replacement theology. I'll just speak for myself. I in no way endorse replacement theology. And the third one was? Mark. Well, first of all, I say in a free society, fair game, and just push back on that with the truth and with hard facts. On this thing of demonizing Israel too, when they want to talk about human rights violations, there's only a few that they can even come close to even trying to cite. People still talk about the Jenin massacre. The United Nations sent a group in to see how many people were massacred. I won't go into all the details of that. None. There was no Jenin massacre. You want to talk about a massacre? Worst massacre ever of Palestinians was by the Arab community in Jordan. It's called Black September. Worst ever. Now there's a massacre, and that's been cataloged. The other thing I like to cite, especially in this most recent, the conflict related to Gaza, Israel has another first in terms of an army. The only army that we know of, only military organization, that before they hit a target, they send either leaflets, emails, phone calls, messengers, and say, all of our adversaries, please clear the area. We'll give you 24 hours or whatever, because we're going to take out that building because they're firing mortars and killing our kids. So I don't know of another military organization that ever warns their adversary to leave the area before they fire at it. And there's always collateral damage in any conflict. It's regrettable. Canada at times has killed innocent people. It happens. It's tragic. Israel always apologizes when that happens. Not that that makes it any better. Comes to the fore. And one thing that is, here's a real difference. I'd just like to share this one. Palestinian terrorists, or one thing the IDF forces have never done, they have never targeted school buses with children. Islamist terrorists do that. They have never targeted restaurants where innocent people are eating. Islamist terrorists, including those coming out of Gaza, do that. So there is a big difference between how Israel operates in a military way and how those forces out of Gaza and the Islamists operate.
Thanks. Just a quick comment that while Israel is encouraging people to get out of an area that they're going to have to respond because rockets have been launched from there, Hamas is encouraging people to stay there and in many cases preventing them from leaving.
It's the third part that I personally am most interested in, and I don't have a pat answer. There are individuals, there are men who hate men. There are women who hate women. There are Christians who hate Christians, and so on and so forth. So are there Jews who disassociate themselves either with the Jewish community or the state of Israel? By all means. I don't think we have one size fits all in dealing with an individual here or here or here, but rather, what is at the heart of this particular individual's case? You cannot put a shovel in the ground here in the Lower Mainland and not come out with an arrowhead. You cannot put a shovel in the ground in, quote, the Holy Land and not come out with some pottery or shard that is thousands of years old, dating back to the time of the temple or before. I don't know of any other country that constantly has to defend its existence. Are there anti-Semitic Jews? Of course. What is behind that is really the answer to your question, as opposed to read this or read that. This individual is upset about something. I have no idea what it is. Therein lies the real question, and it's more therapy than education.
Okay, so there's a few very interesting things. In ancient Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, the word Hamas actually means terror, literally. So violence or terror. And that is one of these ironies, that while they are trying to say that they are not a terrorist group, they themselves call themselves the terror group. And the other part of that irony is that they were democratically elected. So if you remember the 2005 disengagement plan, when Israel pulled out as a first step in the process, in the peace process for the two-state solution, what we got instead was that the Hamas group took over very violently, and they threw from the building, the roof of the buildings, the Fatah, the more moderate parts of the Palestinian Authority, they just took over, and they basically gun-pointed everybody else to really vote. So they won overwhelmingly in a democratic process, and we don't see that anywhere else. It really raises many questions about even democracy, or when a nation is really ready for democracy. So in this sense, to remove Hamas from the list of the terrorist groups is really an irony that I don't really understand how intelligent people can even propose that. So the other part was already being said. Their charter is very clear. It's not like the Palestinian Authority charter that they modified, but not really, like modified in order to please Europe or to please the United Nations, but in reality they keep teaching that to their kids in schools. In the Hamas instance, they encourage and they actually sing it in every day that they will wash the streets of Palestine from with the blood from this Jewish occupation. So Israel gave this first step in this peace process. It was really hard. It was really hard to remove these 40,000 people from their homes. And I can tell you, they still live in improvised homes across Israel. They haven't, not all of them really have been resettled anywhere else 10 years after that. And what we got instead is already 3 wars that have been imposed on Israel. Israel has responded, and that is where the difference lies, that Israel responds to the aggression. And yes, Israel has a policy of responding hard in order to discourage what they are doing to us. But in the last few decades, that turned against us, because the media around the world have been disproportionately measuring and reporting and being very biased when they report about what's happening. And this last war probably was the most staggering example of that, because at the same time there is been going on this war, already 4-year war or something in Syria with 200,000 people massacred, even with mass destruction weapons. And the reports about that are minimal. But when it comes to Israel, something going on with Gaza and retaliating, that's completely a different story. There is like all the media of the world, independent, and all kinds of people, really they're trying to report in a very biased way. So this is happening right now. I live in that part of Israel until 2 years and a half ago. And I can tell you like very vividly, from all those rockets that are shot to the place where I go do the shopping with my kids, which is Beersheba, and we have to run, and we just hear the sirens, and we need to hide because we have, thank God now, the Iron Dome, which shuts down those. So you really go down and you wait, and we have this incredible defense system that really has made a difference. And it's like the world is really mad that Israel got this technology that this last war, they didn't cause as much damage as they would have really liked. So we are in the middle of that. And so really to remove them, and what we would like to ask, and that's part of the other, and I'll let it go here, is like to really do everything in our power to put the pressure in the government. Canada is the #1 friend of Israel, and it's really important for us to have this emotional support. And that support, we just hope that it can be really translated into putting more pressure so that when the money is sent, and we want the money to be sent, and we want help to be sent, we are helping the Palestinians, we want all the world to help the Palestinians, but we need to help them to be free from themselves and from these lies and from this hatred, which is baseless, which is what is called in Hebrew sinat chinam, which means is for free. They hate for no good reason, and then promote what we really want, a dialogue when we can settle in peace and live together in peace. That's what we really want, and I think that you can do a lot to help. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment? People should be reminded that when Israel gave land for peace and pulled out of Gaza unilaterally, displacing all those people, they left behind agricultural production in greenhouses that employed 5,000 Palestinians. And that was 15% of Israel's agricultural export. What's left today of that? Nothing. You see, if there was any effort to build a state, surely they would have kept that infrastructure to employ their own people, and Israel would have been obliged to help with the exports or come under international condemnation. So there is no serious attempt to build a state. They're simply using their population as human shields in their campaign to destroy their neighbor.
All right. Now, look, we want to be sensitive, obviously, because the time is, it's really moving. So ask the question quickly, and then just answer as you feel led, either one of you or on the panel. Okay. Koresh.
My name is Krosh Aryai. I'm an Iranian who converted to Christianity, and I feel this is a privilege, and I'm honored to be face to face with the Prime Minister and honorables to ask this question. I'm completely touched by things that all of you said, and I'm also shocked by what is happening on UBC campus. Like you said, and like all of us know, that the regime in Iran many times over and over said that Israel has to be eliminated from the face of the world. And as an Iranian, I know the mentality of Iranian regime. I'm almost certain that Iranian regime is actually deceiving the world. And they are definitely building that atomic bomb to do what they have said. Now, the things that happened, the agreement that happened, atomic agreement happened in the past few weeks in Europe, and this gives a ticket to the, I believe this gives a ticket to Iranian regime to build that atomic bomb. As a government and as people of Canada, a nation that we all love peace and we all love Israel, what can the government do and what can we do, or what government has done to educate the politicians and the world about this second Holocaust, which is almost coming? We can either allow the second Holocaust take place or we can stop it. There's no middle line. And what can you do and what can we do to educate people, just like Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu, who knows, who also thinks the same way I think? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Korosh. Wonderful question.
Can I just briefly state that when we speak against, and I'm very concerned about this particular nuclear deal, very, very concerned. I won't even start getting into it. But when we talk about I'm glad you said Iranian regime. The Iranian regime is very different than the Iranian people. Exactly. Very different. Last time I was in Tehran, we met with, at the embassy, and for security reasons I can't even say who, but we met with an individual who had been arrested, middle of the night, knock on the door, taken away, and so he'd been a long time gone, and then he was returned. But he and a colleague who were in the media, all they had done was they did a poll in Iran of the amount of support or the feeling of Iranians, the people, towards the United States, and the majority of it was very positive. They published that poll. He was immediately arrested. I don't know what they did to him when he was arrested, but now he was saying, and this is a guy who'd grown his whole life, standing up, not being afraid, being courageous, just saying, I'm not doing those anymore. I don't know what they did to him. And his wife said, we're meeting you in secret, and I'm not even going to say anything, because what happened to my husband, I don't want that ever to happen to him or anyone again, so I'm not saying anything. So there's the Iranian people and then the Iranian regime, and we are very opposed to the Iranian regime, not the people.
I can only say amen to that.
Your question is exceedingly important as to what we do as individuals against the country that is financing most of the terrorism in the world. And it is. I wish I had a simple, or even not so simple, answer to give you. I believe that Mr. Obama is very, very wrong in his approach. And I think this will probably resolve itself right now, because the Iranians are expecting all of the sanctions to be lifted immediately, and that's not negotiable. I also believe that there are certain Democratic senators that are prepared to vote with their Republican across the aisle individuals, and it will probably sink the deal, and Mr. Obama will not be left with veto power. That looks as if that might very well happen. Having said that, I am reminded constantly of a British philosopher, Edmund Burke. All that's necessary for evil to succeed is for good people to do nothing. We saw that. We cannot afford another Neville Chamberlain. We need Winston Churchills in the world. And we need individuals who are going to stand up to that. It's letting our government know, and our government does know, but to let our neighbors to the south know as well. And here will be perhaps a very difficult thing, because I'm asking something of someone else. The Iranians in North America, the Persians, however they want to be known, if they are opposed to this deal, must stand up and let the American government hear it loudly and clearly as well.
And just one last word, which I think is really important. In the Nevi'im, in the prophets, it's very interesting and curious to see that the first time that the word Messiah, Mashiach, is used towards the king of Persia, the king Koresh, and that's where the first time that that title was used. And it was used as an individual that Hashem had chosen in order to bring the fulfillment of the prophecy of the redemption and the return of the Jews to the land of Israel. I believe in our nations, and I was very touched to hear you. And our nations share a very long history, and I really feel connected with the Persian people. We have a lot of Persian friends. We share a lot in culture. And it's really sad when everything turns, these politics turn and create an apparent hatred. I believe that the Israeli people and the Palestinian people and the Iranian people, the Persian people, we would get along so well if there were no politics around. And there is just one thing that is left. The seriousness of what is happening right now is really worrying. Nobody can foretell the future. It's as if we were beginning to live a new set of Cold War, an arms race in the Middle East, with everything is crazy. And where is the religion on top of everything? It's not communism versus capitalism. Here is religion involved, and that involves a lot of passion, a lot of power. And we really are pushed again into one position that we really need to hope in Hashem. We really need to believe, and we really need to hold on to those promises and believe that there is going to be a peaceful resolution to that.
Isn't it interesting that the person that asked the question, his name is Koresh? They're a wonderful family in our church. Okay, Gord.
Hi, yes, my name is Gordon. I'm a local Canadian First Nations small business owner. And the first person to ask a question actually asked the exact same question that I was going to ask. And the person asking a question before me, we're all asking the same thing. What can we do? We're asking it in different ways, but what can we do? So on the consideration that my question has already been asked, I'll ask the same question again, rephrased in a different way. A little bit later on this month, Vancouver actually becomes the center of the anti-Israeli hate-fest world. And we have relatives of terrorists and colleagues of terrorists and people that support terrorist ideology are actually meeting in Vancouver. And I called up the police just to ask a simple question. I don't like what's proposed to be happening here in our city, and I like to ask you a simple question. At what point do police get called? At what point is this like civil hate becomes criminal hate? At what point? And the police officer who took my call frankly admitted he didn't know, and he went on to make highly prejudicial remarks after that. And in fact, I was horrified. So I thought my eyes were open, and really thank you for opening my eyes even wider. So I'm asking again, especially in the context of this hate group that's meeting in Vancouver, what can we do? What can we do? Especially if our police don't even know what is a hate crime. Thank you. Oh my.
Well, on Vancouver specifically, it puts the police in a bit of a tough situation. I mean, it's fair to ask them those questions. Ahead of time, I think there should be, whether rabbis involved in this or not, but meetings with the mayor and council. The more we can do ahead of time to establish some of the so-called rules of engagement, the better. I'll just give you my own experience with the police here in Vancouver, and it was at the synagogue. Usually, and Rabbi and I were both saying, we're kind of disappointed. No protesters tonight. What's going on? Are we not upsetting anybody more? But last time I spoke there were several hundred people inside. Great, wonderful, wonderful group. And several hundred people outside. And when I left, the police were there, asked me, some of them are kind of chanting your name out there. I'm in politics, I mark those folks down as undecided. So they said, do you want to go out the back door? I said, I don't do back doors. I go out the front door. And they said, you want us to be beside with you? I said, no, I'll try and just walk through the crowd. It'll be fine. I know they'll be a little excited. And so they were respectful. They stood back. I realized about 30 seconds into it, I was not going to get through that crowd. They were standing nose to nose, shrieking the most terrible things right into my face. I realized I could probably handle maybe 4 or 5 of them, but I couldn't handle 300 of them. And from nowhere, the police came. They formed a phalanx around me, asked me where my vehicle was, and we started walking forward. The crowd was so intense, the hatred was so strong, the shrieking was so strong, the name-calling. I mean, I was a little bit intimidated. The police were very good. They were not violent, but they made it clear we were moving through. That crowd followed me all the way to my car. The police had to put a cordon around my car and sort of escort me down the street. The next day, they got together with me at their initiation. They had photos. They asked me to identify certain people in the crowd. They said they were extremely concerned about this, and they were wanting to get all the information they could. And they have a lot of information on the people who are in those crowds. So there's sometimes they are in a tough position, but I think rules of engagement beforehand with the mayor and council and possibly the police chief would be helpful in this regard.
I'd just say quickly that, hatred and intolerance mar the character of Canada, which is otherwise known as the most tolerant, multiracial, multi-faith, multicultural nation in the world, and generally we're very, very tolerant. So this hatred and virulence is uncharacteristic of Canada. And, the quote that comes to mind is from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. We all have a voice, and many of you can write in the face of this kind of thing, but Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, silence in the presence of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. To fail to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. So we all have a responsibility in some measure or another to use the tools available to us to make a difference. And we have had conferences on combating anti-Semitism in 2008 in London, England, and in 2 years later in 2010, right here in Ottawa. Politicians from around the world working on combating anti-Semitism around the world and the new anti-Semitism hatred of Israel. So we all have a role to play in making sure that we work to expunge this virulent ideology from Canada so that our reputation as a tolerant and accepting nation, accepting of differences, prevails in the face of this evil.
I have to say that living in Canada for me is a beautiful experience. We love this country. And we've lived and traveled in many places in the world, and nothing comes nearly as safe as Canada. What we feel here is something that cannot be compared to anything that the Jewish communities of Europe are living. Now in the US is becoming more and more aggressive. So this is something that Vancouver is beginning to get a taste of what is going on around the globe. And what I just like to say is that I believe strongly in my heart that what the Creator of heaven is giving the world with Israel is an opportunity to be tested, to be proved, because He at the end will bless those who bless, and He will take care of those who do the opposite. So I believe that you, by just taking that position of praying, of hoping, or talking on behalf, you are doing what you need to do, and you are going to be blessed and receive the reward. And don't worry about the help, because we know that help will come one way or the other. But we know that the one that we trust, He's going to be faithful, and He's going to take care of that all the way to the end.
All right, the final question.
I'm Betty Lou Lowen, ICEJ rep for British Columbia. I want to thank all 4 of you for sharing from your hearts so passionately. It's been educational and inspirational and challenging, and gives us the incentive we need to take the stands that we need to do right now. So thank you so much, and especially Rabbi Bregman for sharing your own personal stories of what you've gone through. And it makes us all want to say, we are so sorry that this had to happen to you. It should not be in our country, ever. And we just want to make up for this in any way we can, and it just so happens that God has provided us with opportunities. Gordon was very PC, which is not like him, to not mention names and so on, but I'm going to take up the challenge and say the anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist group, which claims they are neither, is Sabeel, and they are meeting in Vancouver at an Anglican church in Kerrisdale, April 23rd to 25th. And some of us feel that we need to go there and protest. We feel we need to either go in and ask pointed questions at question time, if they will let us, or protest outside with some appropriate kind of signs. This is hard for Christians to do. We aren't the type to make trouble, you know? We like to keep quiet and keep out of sight. And you have put your lives on the line. You've put your reputations on the line. And I think God is asking us to do the same. So, my question is, would you advise us and anybody out there who feels led to do the same thing to go with a sign that's not too negative, but tells the truth? Because this is a deceptive organization. They claim not to be replacement theology when they are. They claim not to be pro-violence, but they are. They just lie about everything. But they can have this appearance of looking peace-loving and justice and all that, right? Appealing to students. And you'll notice most of the people here are middle-aged and older. There's not very many young people. We're very concerned about that. And I would hope that Christian clubs on campuses would join together with Hillel and stand up for them and say, you're not going to do that to them. We're standing with them, in front of them, in fact. You have to go over us first. I want to see Christian kids do that in universities. But we're willing to do it. We don't want the public to think that all Christians are like this Sabeel group who is claiming all these negative lies about Israel. We want that to be known. Now, do you think this is okay for us to do? And any advice, because this is new territory for us.
Yes, no, and maybe. Yeah, I would take the opportunity, if you're going to be protesting, or I wouldn't call it protesting, call it advocating. Be respectful, as I know you will be. And one of my sons in Alberta took his kids to one of these rallies in Calgary, young kids, and they were absolutely shocked to see, first of all, how the pro-Israel side, people were there, but they were respectful. The other side, vile, angry, physical beatings took place, and unfortunately, they felt there was too much restraint with the police. So be careful. Have a handout to go with you with some basic facts, and do have a video actually going the whole time someone is confronting you. So try and keep the temperature down. And yes, I think some of you should go inside, find out how to register, and ask respectfully to ask the questions. What the rabbi shared with us about what he went through, I got a tiny taste of that. Believe me, I'm not trying to equate myself with what this man and what Jews go through. But when the Prime Minister visited Israel, he was asked to go to visit the temple. See that golden dome there? And you can go up there. The Waqf, who are the Muslim, the Arab police who control that area, told the Israeli and Canadian security, yeah, he can come up here, but none of your security people are allowed to bring their firearms. Well, of course, that was then out of the question. Prime Minister couldn't go. I was asked if I wanted to go. I went with 4 or 5 Jews. I'm just going to really summarize this quickly. This is the Temple Mount. This is the holiest place in the world to Jews and to Muslim. First of all, the Jews don't get allowed to go in the same gate as tourists. You can go there. Maybe some of you have been up on Temple Mount. You go in a separate gate, right beside where all the tourists are going through quickly. There was only 4 of us, or 5. They made us stand there for a half hour. Just stand there. Now, my friends were wearing the appropriate headgear. I was not, but I was identified as a Jew. So I got how to feel what it was like to be a Jew. Then when they allowed us to go through, they searched us. They went through all our material, and they came eyeball to eyeball like this, and told me and the others, you will not pray up there. Now, I felt like doing a Daniel moment. Go on, I'm going to pray, but I thought, no, I'm being asked here, invited to go as guests. They were told, do not pray. They searched through the materials that we had. The man who was leading us was a professor from the University of Hebrew University, and he had a book of archaeological documents showing where Solomon's temple was. They went through everything to make sure we didn't have And nobody else went through that. When we finally were let through and we were allowed to walk up, it's a beautiful area up there, walk around, we were surrounded by, depending on the time, 6 to 8 to 10 of the temple or of the Mount Police, the Waqf. I looked at other tourists, they were wandering around, they had full access to the area. We were surrounded, they were standing very close to us. At one point I said to Aaron, he was one of my friends, he was taking a little while, and I said, "What were you doing right there?" He said, "I was praying." And I went, "Okay, but let's go about this carefully." When we were up there, a Muslim, in this case it happened a number of times, sometimes it happens a lot, but this woman was shrieking at us. She was wearing her headgear, shrieking at us. I said to my Jewish friends, "What are they saying?" They said, "It's okay." I said, "No, what are they saying?" They were shrieking, "Jews, get out of here. You have no right to be here." Shrieking that publicly, the police not asking them to stop whatsoever. So, Rabbi, I know 1/1000th of what you went through for years of your life.
Thank you, Stock. I really appreciate also the question. And so my answer is yes. I think that it's time to put some skin in the game. And I think young people have to see older people doing that. I was very blessed growing up in Toronto to have as my rabbi, Rabbi W. Gunter Plaut, one of the great, great rabbis of North America. He had to escape Germany, which he was fortunate in doing, and came to the United States, ultimately coming to Toronto. And he taught me that really no one is free until everyone is free. I spent a great deal of my teenage youth walking and protesting outside of the American consulate in Toronto. Primarily because I started an organization, a nice Jewish boy started an organization in Toronto called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This, of course, was the organization headed by the late Martin Luther King Jr. The most important piece of paper that I have in my office is the personal thank you signed by Martin Luther King. A kid was looking at that just the other day and went, "Wow," and said to me, "How old were you?" And I had to do the math. I was 15. They need to see that things cannot simply go along without. It will be awkward for you. It will be strange at first. As Stockwell Day said, you need to be respectful, but your message needs to be clear. That this group that is meeting at St. Mary's Anglican Church in Kerrisdale does not speak for all of Christendom. They do not. And the United Church needs to hear that, and the Presbyterian Church of Canada needs to hear that, and the Anglican Church of Canada needs to hear that. I have been in many, many conversations with many of these individuals, and I am beyond dismayed that they're going to be having a discussion about BDS, having told them what we have just gone through. They need, the media, the public needs to know there is not just another side, there is the correct side.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guests tonight, they've really spoken from their heart. They have spoken from their experience. Can we stand and applaud them, acknowledging and recognizing how grateful we are this evening? Wonderful. All right, just in closing, this obviously was sponsored by Canadians United for Zion, as I mentioned to you right from the beginning. We have a number of clipboards. On your way out, there's a table. If you desire more information, for example, how you can get involved to stand alongside the Jewish Defense League on the 23rd and to the 25th, then we will email you and give you the information that is necessary for an orientation meeting that's going to be held in conjunction with Mayor Weinstein, or Meyer Weinstein, from the Jewish Defense League. But also this evening, if you so choose to, we've not taken an offering because it's really not about an offering. But if you feel and choose to donate tonight towards the cause of Canadians United for Zion, I assure you it will be used again to further the purposes and the vision and the direction of Canadians United for Zion. We have a number of ushers on the way out that if you want to donate, if you want to make checks out, please make it out to Westwood Community Church, the entire name, Westwood Community Church, and then we will make sure our administrator will know what to do with those funds. But having said that, one final thing, Christine Williams is from ICJ Canada. She's a public relations and media consultant. She writes for Huffington Post, National Post, a number of newspapers and different organs, so to speak, across the nation. Christine is going to be speaking on a webinar along with myself entitled In Defense of Biblical Zionism, a Response to Replacement Theology. We also have flyers there available for you. They're on the table outside. Now, having said that, I just want to say I'm so delighted that you've come tonight. We believe that as Christians and Jews together, we can see amazing things accomplished in our city. And quite frankly, when we pool our resources together and we walk in solidarity and unity, I can assure you, no force, no power, no movement, no organization can stop the march for truth. Can I hear you say amen? Amen. So God bless you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. And once again, thank you, Stockwell. Thank you, James. And thank you, Philip Bregman and Yoel Levin. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. God be with you all.